What's up, guys? UFC 241 coming up. Sick card. One of the best cards this year on paper, I would say. Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic. First fight, Daniel Cormier knocked him out pretty early. Now we got a rematch. I noticed, Stipe's got a big chip on his shoulder, and that says a lot because a bad knockout like that, you would think it could get in your head a little bit. You might question yourself, but Stipe looks to be ultra confident. I feel like he has in his mind he's 100% getting this fight. You see him on the embeddeds, like talking to people like, "Hey, knock DC out, get that win back," and he's like, I promise, I will." He's got a lot of confidence. He's feeling himself right now. He wants to get this rematch back really bad. He waited a long time to get it, but he had his daughter. He got to live that part of his life, to see her kind of grow up a little bit, her first year in this world. So that was cool for him. And now he's got to try to rebound against DC and make this better and try to get a win here. It's a tough task. DC's undefeated at heavyweight. He's only lost to John Jones, and that's at light heavyweight. At heavyweight, his power really translates. He knocks guys out at heavyweight, and that's a big threat. Stipe's got to be aware early on. Don't get in that clinch exchange where be aware on the breaks if you are in the clinch. Because DC is going to be throwing those hooks off the breaks, and the wrestling advantage obviously goes to DC. But I don't know if he'll even look for the takedown, being that he knocked him out. He had that success. That's big, And if you knocked a guy out, most likely you feel like you could do it again. Now, could he mix up the wrestling? Would that be smart? Maybe, perhaps, break up the rhythm, change up the game plan a little bit. Olympic level wrestler, obviously you give the edge to DC there, but Stipe has great wrestling himself. Maybe Stipe should mix it up and try to take DC down or at least threaten it and keep him guessing. But I think, we got to see Stipe with some better movement, a little bit more alert, little bit more aware in the early first, second round. And I think the fight will go a lot longer because I think Stipe will come in sharp and have learned from that last fight. There was a lot of talk about the eye pokes, and Stipe's been humble about it. He doesn't want to talk about it, so that's cool of him. And but that could affect you in a fight. Like, people like to say, people trying to find a way out, this and that, but Stipe's held his head high after taking this knockout loss. He hasn't, any kind of interview where they mention the eye pokes, he's like, next question. He don't want to even talk about that as an excuse, so props to him for that. And, I'm looking forward to see how he rebounds. What can DC do better? He knocked him out early in the last fight. Now you got to pretty much match it or do something even more spectacular, which is hard to do. So I don't see that happening, but I do see DC winning at least 3 of the rounds. He's got great forward pressure, and once you start hitting DC, because he takes his time in the first round, the competitive guy, the savage in him comes alive, and he starts doing better. I'm going with DC by decision in this fight. Anthony Pettis, Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz has been off for a while. Pettis, the thing about this fight is if you look at any of Nate Diaz's weaknesses, he doesn't check leg kicks. He doesn't deal with kicks very well altogether. He's gotten hit to the body with some kicks before in the past that have hurt him. But he's a pressure fighter. His boxing is phenomenal. He's got long range. He likes to throw that really long straight too. And Pettis is a guy that we've seen break to some extent in the past. But like Duke Rufus said on Ariel's show, he's like, this guy Nate brings out the best in Anthony. He brings out the gangster in him. Like, he could play that role too if he wants to. So I believe his coach, he's in the gym seeing how he's looking, sparring and all that stuff. So I think Anthony Pettis is coming in this fight fresh, solid, a lot of momentum, knocking out a guy like Wonderboy Thompson who's never been knocked out. Now, he was losing that fight before that happened, so I wouldn't look too much into that. But nonetheless, he's coming off a big knockout. That's a lot of momentum, and that's, that gives you some confidence going into a fight like this. Diaz has been out 3 years or so. I don't know how long he's been out, but I don't give ring rust a factor in this fight. I feel like Diaz he's running triathlons, he's swimming, he's doing everything he can in training, so I don't see that being a factor. He's obviously in shape all year round. The guy puts the work in. His older brother's Nick Diaz. Growing up with that, I'm sure you know how to fight. So Nate Diaz is solid, man. And he's obviously going to look to try to box up Pettis and push him against the cage and try to use that body head range. And, you know, he doesn't really kick much. Sometimes he goes to the head with that left head kick. But, you know, Pettis is going to be mixing it up. He's going to be in there throwing crazy shit. He's going to be throwing hard leg kicks, hard switch kicks to the body, to the head. And I believe if he can mix it up to the head first and then go to the body, he can land something solid to Nate's body. I don't know what it is, but stylistically, if Pettis shows up the way he can, I just believe he's going to get the job done. I don't know if he's going to finish a guy like Nate. That's a really tough task. But we even heard Duke say that he might throw a takedown in this fight. You know, Anthony Pettis is slick on the ground. I believe he's a black belt too. But Nate Diaz is amazing on the ground too. And it would be really interesting to see this fight go to the mat just to see how it looks and what happens. I imagine that Pettis would be the guy to shoot a takedown if so. But Nate Diaz does have some solid throws, judo throws in the clinch and some trips and stuff like that. So really interested to see if the fight even hits the mats. But I'm going to go with Anthony Pettis by decision. I don't think the fight's going to get finished, but I think that he'll get a decision by just kind of outpointing Diaz as far as like diversity of strikes goes and throwing him off with the kicks and stuff like that and the flashy stuff. You know, if he could chew up the legs of Diaz early, we saw Conor use that game plan the second fight, which worked really, really well. That could be the a route that he takes. We'll see what happens. I'm going with Pettis by decision. Romero versus Costa. This is a crazy fight, man. And Romero's like 42, but this guy is unbelievable. Like, the only person to beat him, and it wasn't even like he got beat, and that was Robert Whittaker, the world champ. So, you know, I wouldn't argue if some people said Yoel won at least one of those fights, if not both. Really close fights. Yoel is such a high-level wrestler, and he's such a seasoned veteran. The guy's so smart. He starts the fight kind of slow. He kind of baits you into this lull, this slow movement, and then he explodes on you faster than anyone ever, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? The guy's explosive, powerful, very good at wrestling and trips, and he's sneaky. You know, he's smart in there. He knows how to game the system if he has to. We've seen him on the stool in that fight with Tim Kennedy, where he was kind of playing the clock. We've seen him, you know, kind of get hit to the groin in fights and take his time and upset the momentum of the fight, stuff like that. And, you know, Costa's got a lot of power and he's an aggressive fighter, but I feel like Romero knows how to weather the storm. He's been in so many top level fights, and I cannot see him losing this fight, man. I think Romero's gonna get the job done. I think he's gonna really tire out Paulo Costa. I think if he's smart, he'll go for the takedown, try to ground and pound him a little bit, tire him out. You know, that's probably the best route to go with Costa, but if he has to, I think he could pick him apart a little bit and choose when to explode and when to land those shots, because Costa is more of a brawler where he's just going to let go of that power with every shot that he has. And Romero is more of a guy to set things up and take his time, and I think that'll be the difference in this fight. I'm going with Yoel Romero by TKO. Benitez Youssef. I've just been so impressed with Youssef. The guy's cool, calm, collected. He's only had 10 fights altogether. He's 9-1, but he's just so collected in the fight. He's calm. He's such a well-rounded striker. He doesn't bite too much. He's got good, solid defense. So does Gabriel Benitez, though. He showed amazing striking defense in his fights, and he's a fast striker. He's really elusive too. He's 21-6, so he has a lot of experience edge in this fight. But I just really can't go against Youssef. I feel like he's got a lot of momentum behind him. He just shows that he's on another level in these fights with fighting these guys. He's one of those guys that when I watch him, I'm just like, I can't see that guy lose. And there's not many guys like that, but that just happens every once in a while where you find a guy and you're just like, how is this guy going to get beat? Like, I just can't see it happening. And he's that guy for me. So I'm going with Youssef. I think the fight will go the distance, although I think he might be able to hurt Benitez. I think Benitez is tough enough to get through it. I think Youssef by unanimous decision, though. Derek Brunson, Ian Hainish. Hainish looked great in his last fight, but I know I heard that he didn't have the same training partners in this camp, and that could be a big detriment to your preparation. Derek Brunson, he's had some losses, but he's fought he's beat some of the top guys in the division. He's a very high level wrestler too, but he's been known to kind of leave his chin out there and throw a little bit wild, kind of bum rush guys with off balance style like that, which I think if he fixes that up and he still puts the pressure on Ian Hainish and utilizes his wrestling with his strikes, I think he could outpoint Hainish and win the fight. But Hainish looked really good against Shoeface in his last fight. He negated the jiu-jitsu. He stayed a good top pressure. He was really smart in that fight. And if he could fight the same way against Brunson, I think he'll do good. But I got to pick Brunson just based off of experience of competition and his style of fighting. I just think that he'll just be a little bit too much for Hainish. I think when it comes to the wrestling, he'll have the edge. When it comes to the striking, he's a little bit more powerful, in my opinion, and I got to go with Brunson. Moving on to the prelims. I'll touch up on some of these fights a little bit quicker. Devontae Smith versus Kama Worthy. Kama Worthy, I know he's fought Matt Bissett, knocked him out on the regional scene. He's taken this fight on very short notice. And Devontae Smith has looked amazing out of Factory X over there in Colorado. He's been landing that right hand crisp, clean, fast. He's been knocking guys out. He was supposed to fight Makdessi, which is a much more competitive fight. I believe he's going to get the knockout in this fight. This is a little bit of a mismatch, one of those, fill in the short notice spot fights. I'd be surprised if Worthy shows, a competitiveness in this fight. I think it should end in round 1 or round 2. Devontae Smith by knockout. Now this fight, Asuncao and Corey Sandhagen, man, Asuncao is one of the most underrated guys in the bantamweight division. The guy has wins over Dillashaw from way back. Dillashaw obviously beat him, but that's controversial at this point, to say the least. And Asuncao, has beat Marias and lost to Marias. He's been at the top of the division for years. He's fought the best of the best, the who's who up there. And this is one of those fights where I think they're using Asuncao to see kind of gauge where these new up and comers are and where they're at. And I think this is a perfect fight to find that out. Sandhagen coming off a big win against Linacre, which I thought was a much closer fight and really could have gone Lineker's way, but I'm not mad at the decision. Sandhagen won. He did land a lot of significant strikes in that fight, but a lot of those punches Linacre landed were blocked. But I just thought Linacre threw a lot more, was a lot more aggressive. But it's hard to judge those kind of fights. Sandhagen was crisp with the jab. He had some good flying knees. His movement is amazing. He's able to switch stances, and his speed and accuracy is really good as well. But Asuncao is a much better gauge than Linacre. I feel like Linacre, really hard guy to beat, powerful striker. You can't hurt the fucking guy. You can never count him out, and he's a dangerous opponent. But Asuncao is a more seasoned veteran who's fights smart. He's able to mix it up. He's a black belt on the ground, really slick on the ground, and he outpoints guys on the feet. He uses his veteran status to outsmart guys. He's not the guy that's going to go in there and just throw balls to the wall and just let it all hang out and just kind of leave caution to the wind. He's going to try to outpoint you, outstrike you. Every time you land on him, he's going to try to land back quick. He's hard to take down. He's very hard guy to finish. Although Marias did, that was very impressive how he landed that right hand and then followed up and finished him on submission on the ground with the guillotine. But this is the real test for Sandhagen. If he can get this job done, he's a real title contender. I just don't think he's there yet. He's young. He still has a lot of time to do so. He has 12 fights. He's 11-1. Obviously, Asuncao's got many more fights than him, and I think that's going to play a role in this. I think he's going to get the decision victory. I think he's just going to do a little bit more than Linacre did, and it's going to be a little bit more clear-cut. Might be a split decision, but I give it to Asuncao. Iagos versus Drakkar Close. I've been very impressed with Drakkar Close. The guy is aggressive. He's a competitor. He takes one to give one. He's fast. He's very well rounded, and he's an aggressive fighter. He's gonna hurt you. He's gonna put it on you. And if you get in the exchanges with him, he is not gonna back down. He's one of those guys that he'll stay in the pocket and throw heavy power to exchange with you and have no fear to do so. So Giagos is good, but I think he's just a little bit level below, and I give the fight to Drakkar close. I think he'll finish the fight within 2 rounds by TKO. Manny Bermudez versus Casey Kenny. Bermudez is slowly creeping up in the bantamweight division. He's a submission connoisseur. The guy's fucking choking everyone out, and he's making it look easy. I think Casey Kenny is a guy that is going to make it look a little bit harder. I think he's going to test him with his wrestling ability and his grittiness. He's going to be in his face, and he's going to be mixing up strikes and takedowns. I was impressed with Kenny's fight with Borg, but although I thought Borg probably won that fight, it was very close. Bermudez is obviously going to look to take the fight to the ground. He's going to have a size advantage, but I haven't really seen him test his striking much. He's one of those guys that just kind of is happy with getting the fight to the ground and getting it over quick with a submission. So I see that being his approach. But I see Casey Kenny being a guy that's going to mix up his wrestling, kind of make it hard on Bermudez, forward pressure, get him against the cage. But Bermudez is slick, man, and I think he's going to have a strength advantage, and he's going to be the bigger guy. He's going to have a little bit more reach advantage. He's undefeated as well, 14-0. He's finishing guys in the UFC. I believe he's 3-0 or 4-0 in the UFC right now. And hopefully if he wins this fight, we could see him fight, a top 10 guy to really see where he's at. I'm going with Manny Bermudez by either submission or if he can't pull it off, decision. But, yeah, definitely Bermudez in this fight. Quick and easy. Boom, bada, bing. All right, early prelims. Quick and easy. We'll make some picks. Hannah Cyphers. The girl's a brick house. She's strong. Jodie Eskimo. I'm going with Cyphers. I think she'll get the job done by decision. Most of these girls' fights go to decision, especially with their styles. I feel like it's going to go the full 3 rounds. I'm going with Cyphers. Kang Ho versus Brandon Davies. This is a close fight, man. Kang's been really impressive. He's a finisher. But Brandon Davies is big, man. I think he was saying he was like 165, cutting down to 135, and he looked really good in his last fight. Although he had some trouble early, he's a seasoned striker, man. He's got really good striking. He's confident in the pocket. He's a fast guy. He's tall, lengthy, big frame for the weight class. But Kang is just more of a finisher, so I give the edge to Kang as far as who could finish the fight. If it goes the distance, you never know. I feel like this fight will primarily stay on the feet. I don't think either of these guys is really looking to force takedowns, but I'm gonna go with Kang. I think it'll go the distance, so I think he'll get the decision. He'll land the more significant, powerful strikes. Sabina Mazo versus Shauna Dobson. Let's be honest here. Don't know much about these two, but I've heard a lot about Mazo. She was the underdog, but I was surprised about that. She has double the amount of wins as Dobson, and more experience as well. I'm gonna go with Mazo by decision. Let's get over to some fan questions on Twitter. I believe we had like 4 or 5 on here. Let's go straight up to the brother Keith Kelleher. How you doing, dog? If Sandhagen beats a Sun Sao, who do you think he fights next? Also, I hate how it just seems like nobody is active anymore. I mean, they are filling the cards, so obviously there's fights being made, but especially bantamweight guys I feel should be fighting more often. Yeah, I mean, champions, they get the belts and then they get surgeries and they kind of, take their time to see who they want to fight next because they have the negotiating power, and now they're the ones making the calls as far as, who they want to fight to challenge their title. And, they worked their ass off to get there, so now they're singling out the money fights and who's going to sell the most pay-per-views with them, who's going to talk the most shit and all that. You see Cejudo calling out Faber. He's just skipping over Sterling and Peter Yan and all the guys that really deserve it, and there's a reason for that. It's fucked up, but hey, if you're a fighter and you know that you're going to be in this game and out of this game quick and you're taking risks on your health, it makes business sense to try to fight the biggest fights, and unfortunately for the fans and for the legitimacy of the sport, that's not what we want to see, but that's what happens. But as far as Sandhagen, if he beats a Sun Sao, I could see them it would be really cool to see him fight Cruz. That was his idol growing up in the sport. Two styles that are mirror images, pretty much. He took a lot of his tools and utilizes them in his fights. I think that's a potential matchup that they'll look to make if Sandhagen wins. Cruz coming off a long layoff. That would be a tough matchup for Cruz to have to deal with that for his first fight back. But that would be a cool fight for the fans, and that would be a great dream matchup for Sandhagen because, honestly, they're going to have to match up Jan versus Sterling if Cejudo doesn't fight one of them. I really honestly feel like Cejudo might fight Benavidez next, depending on if he comes off the surgery healthy and his weight is low enough. He's going to need more time to defend the belt. I believe they're going to go the interim title route with the bantamweights. I think they're going to make Sterling Jan for an interim title at some point, being that Cejudo will most likely fight for flyweight first, which means he probably won't defend his bantamweight title for another, 6 months to a year. Who even knows how long he's out for. So I would say a Sunsao Cruz, or I would say Sandhagen versus Cruz next, or Sandhagen versus Faber. Maybe just to see where Faber's at if he's not the next guy that Cejudo fights. That's another big fight. I don't think Faber wants to fight guys, down the ranks. I think he wants to see if he could really be at the top still. So that's another option. We'll see, man. We'll see what they do. He's got to get past the Sunset. That's a tough task. The Open Roll on Twitter. Technical views on Sandhagen and Sunsao. Yeah, I went over this fight a little bit. Sandhagen's movement is such a crucial part of his fighting. His range, his speed. For a Sunsao, I think he's going to want to kind of pressure, get close to Sandhagen, utilize leg kicks, those calf kicks. He's going to have a little bit more power, I feel. He's knocked guys out before, but he doesn't really try to knock guys out. He's more of a point striker. I just think for Sunsao, he's got to be a little bit more active. He's got to be a little bit more forward pressure, cut off the angles. Don't allow Sandhagen to bounce around the cage and switch stances and use that range and stick that jab at him over and over and over. Don't get too wild, with his punches, which Sunsao doesn't. He's more technical. He's going to be the shorter guy. He's got to get inside. That's the bottom line. For Sandhagen, utilize your movement, utilize your jab early, develop your range, and throw some of those flying techniques in there and some of those those things to throw off a Sunsao. I don't really see Sandhagen looking for takedowns. Maybe a Sunsao, if he's smart, try to insert some takedowns in there. We saw a guy like Linacre take Sandhagen down at the end of that. Got caught in the guillotine, but he did get a takedown, and that says a lot. Lineker's not much of a wrestler. So if a Sunsao can mix in some wrestling and utilize jiu-jitsu, I think that'd be a smart way for him to try to win, submission. Although Sandhagen's a very high-level jiu-jitsu guy, but if you're a black belt yourself and you can use some ground and pound and positioning, that's big for a Sunsao. Bear 22. How will losing twice in a row give Stipe redemption? Oh, because I said it's a chance at redemption. Not that he's guaranteed to get it, but it's a chance at redemption, my friend. Loco Honey at Mitch Davies 4. Is Romero too big of a step up for Costa? I wouldn't say it's too big of a step up as far as like him trying to make his way up for a title, because that's what you got to do to get up there. If you want to fight Adesanya or Whitaker, you got to fight Romero to see if you belong there. But as far as the skills go and the matchup goes, I would say so. I think Romero's just a level above him. I don't know if it's too soon, too early type thing, because who else was Costa going to fight? I guess they could have moved him along a little slower, but he wanted this fight. It's a little bit personal, I feel, for some reasons I'm not sure of, but his coach Eric Albarracin, I think he was he helped Romero. He's been in his corner before, so he knows a lot about him. That helps, but Romero's skills are just a little bit above Costa. I feel like his wrestling, his veteran status is just going to be too much in this fight. The guy's got a brick chin. I know Costas is powerful, but Romero's been hit with everything in that Whitaker fight, and he's still in there no matter what. So Romero's getting the job done. That's what I feel. At Justin Chilcott, what weapons will be a factor for Pettis Diaz? For Pettis, it's the leg kicks. Start early with the leg kicks. Chop those legs down. Slow down Pettis's move. Slow down Nate Diaz's movement. Slow down his striking. Mix it up. Head, body, legs. Those kicks are the key for Pettis. And he's a black belt at kicking. So that's obviously what he needs to utilize the most. For Nate Diaz, it's put the volume on Pettis. Do not let him get started with the kicks. Outbox him early on. Try to taunt him like Nate Diaz does. Give him the finger. Laugh at him. Make him uncomfortable. I've seen Pettis get uncomfortable in fights, and if things start going wrong for him, the momentum shifts really quick, and he falls apart. So that's what Nate Diaz has to do. How do you feel that Frankie is entering your division? By Chris Bellafato on Instagram. I'm excited, man. The more the merrier. Frank Jaeger's a legend. He's done it all. 155 champ, 145 got close. He's just too small fighting those guys. I've seen him in person. He's a stocky guy, but he's about my size. Walks around in the 150s, maybe 160s, low 160s. A lot of bantamweights get that heavy, and I think he's gonna fit in well with this weight class, just with his frame and the way he fights and his style. He seems to be a strong guy, even at featherweight and lightweight, but he just seems to be a little bit smaller. He seems like the shots that he's taking at 45 are hurting him a little bit more. It seems like the way he hits guys at 45, they're just not being phased as much as guys at bantamweight would be. But we'll see how the speed translates. He's very fast. He's a dirty boxer. He's a speedy guy mixing up wrestling with his boxing. So I think he'll do really well in the weight class. I'm looking forward to see who they match him up with first. Let's see. Do we have anything else on Twitter? Yoel is rich now. This is from at Trent English 1. Do you think this can make a difference in his performance now? He doesn't need the money. No, I think Yoel's doing this for the love of the game. The guy's, 42, and he's still doing it. He doesn't need to do it. He loves the game. He's still competitive. He's still out there performing, amazingly at his age. And with these supplement companies, with these lawsuits, who knows if he even gets half that money. I know they make it sound like, $27 million, but who knows what he's going to get. He's got to pay lawyers, and these supplement companies can just claim bankruptcy, and, the least amount goes to him. So, no, I don't think that'll be a factor. But that's about it, guys. Thank you guys for watching. UFC 241 this Saturday. I can't wait. I placed some bets, I've been having some luck with bets. It makes the fights a lot funner to watch, being that I've been watching fights for over 13 years, 15 years maybe, like every single weekend. So excited to see this card, though. This is amazing. Thank you guys for tuning in. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at BrianBoom135. Give me a thumbs up if you could. Subscription. I really appreciate it. We're trying to build this channel. I'm trying to get myself out there in the media, and eventually maybe start interviewing fighters myself. And I love breaking down the fights and doing podcasts like this. So anybody who's interested to do a tag team type deal, let's get it done. And thanks for tuning in again. Appreciate it. Boom.